We'll call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, June 19th, 2017 to order. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson. Here. Christensen.
Here.
Schwantes. Here. Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus. Here. Maskey.
Here.
Plowman. Fagerly.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, do we have any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda? Council? Okay, we have, there's 3 items that I would like to add to the agenda. One is a request from the Destination Playground folks for the council to consider an action. The next is First Street Tax Increment Finance District, a presentation from our Planning and Development Director, Mr. Peterson. And then also a discussion in regards to soil corrections in the industrial park. So those 3 items will be added to the end of the council agenda as it's prepared. Anything else from council? Anything else from staff? Seeing and hearing none, we will adopt the agenda as presented. There's been a motion and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does pass. Next are the consent items. Ms. Thompson?
On the consent agenda this evening, we have the City Council minutes of June 5th, 2017, Willmar Municipal Utility Board minutes of June 12th, the Planning Commission minutes of June 14th. We have a resolution to authorize execution of the MnDOT grant agreement for airport security gate repairs, resolution to approve master partnership contract with MnDOT, resolution to approve final payment to Crow River Construction for project number 1602, reallocation of RAC CIP for high-definition server, resolution to approve amendment number 2 to the Bolton and Mink Professional Services Agreement for 2017 improvements, resolution to approve cable television franchise extension, 2 resolutions of intent to reimburse for project numbers 1801A and 1904. We have the Willmar Lakes Rotary Club 1-day to 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license. And we have to accept the Police Department statistics report for the month of May 2017 and the accounts payable report through June 14, 2017.
Enter motion for their approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items as presented. I would like to pull item G, the reallocation of RAC CIP for high-definition server. Council, any other items that you would like to discuss? Seeing and hearing none, with the exception of item G, we have a motion that's been made and seconded to approve the consent items. All in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, it's a roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution does pass. I would like to discuss the RAC CIP for high-definition server. Mr. Holland, the council just approved the cable television franchise extension for an additional 6 months. We were on a 6-month extension for the public's benefit, so we haven't gotten it done in 6 months. Now we are asking for another 6 months, and we're asking for a high-definition server, and in my discussions, it would place us in a favorable position in our negotiating if we had this high-definition server in place. Well, I don't think it's a good idea to spend money to try to see if we can get a better deal on our franchise agreement. Also, additionally, I'm not sure how many of our citizens, particularly our elderly citizens, have high-definition TVs. And so I'm finding difficulty You know, if it would have came within the budget, it would have been done, it wouldn't have been a problem, but this is an additional $2,000 of expenditures for something that we're not even, we don't even have a franchise agreement at this point. We're on an extension, so can somebody help me understand why we should spend this $14,000 plus to do this project?
Mayor and council, the first list deal with the franchise agreement that,
Well, the council approved that piece.
I understand that, but it's important to note that it doesn't hinge upon the high-definition server or any of the equipment that we purchased down at the TV station. The extension, which I appreciate that we have extended, and it's unfortunate that we had to do a second extension, but if we would not approve that, then we subject ourselves to losing that franchise revenue. So we would essentially shoot ourselves in the foot because we would lose that money. So I advise that although it's taking longer than it should, we should continue down that road. Now, as far as the server, I have asked our IT director to come forward, please, to the podium at this time, and he can give a little more detail on what the purpose of the server is and why we need that down at the station. So I'll turn it over to him.
Mr. Smithy?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what the server is, it was approved for the amount of about $14,000 for the 2017 CIP budget, and what we're looking at, or what the cable coordinators advised me of, is that there's actually two pieces that were required that came in over the initial quote from 2016. They both came to around $16,000. What the request was is to simply move over about $2,900 from the RAC operating budget into the RAC CIP. It's more of a policy or procedural thing for the finance department to do this, and then we can purchase both of them as capital.
Could you elaborate on the usage of the equipment?
Yep.
And the purpose of it?
Well, what the equipment will do is actually facilitate a high-definition channel, which Charter has already promised to the city for this year, and I believe that's close to being in completion. And both of these will work in tandem in order to allow the channel be served not only as high definition, but can also be scaled back down to, I believe, standard definition.
And so, again, I'll ask the question, I mean, is this good use of taxpayers' dollars? It's $16,916.34. I mean, what are we getting for that? What are the taxpayers getting? What's the end result of what are they getting? And it only affects the people that actually are on the system. The people that aren't on the system, the people that have dish or use an antenna at home, they see no benefit of this.
That'd be correct. This would only affect people who have standard def or high-definition TV. In a way, we kind of look at it as taking the leap from, for example, black and white to color TV. Now we're moving from analog into standard and high-definition TV.
And what would be the consequence if we do not purchase this?
We would have a high-definition channel that we wouldn't be able to use at its full capacity of displaying in standard or high-def.
Council, any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Christensen, followed by Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I recall, the HD channel was promised to us by Charter outside of this agreement we're going to extend.
That's correct.
And the money that is used to purchase this equipment actually comes from fees from Charter.
That's correct. It comes
really-
from franchise fees.
And so it really isn't taxpayer money. It's people that belong to Charter. And
That'd be
and I
correct.
think the future of TV is HD, and I think we need it, Mr. Mayor. It's a small price to pay. And again, it's members' fees that are buying this equipment. And keep in mind that RAC 8 dumps a lot of money into our general fund each year and does not spend it all. It's a lot of it comes under our discretion. We can put it where we want to, but I think we need to do it. I was on the board in prior years, and I recall that being promised to us, and then when we got it, we might as well utilize it.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Now, I'm understanding that the trend is towards HD TV,
That'd be correct.
and currently Granite Falls will be getting a new public access cable service, and what are they going to be broadcasting in, probably?
I'm not certain of what definitions they're in, probably high definition and IP based, so.
Okay. I agree with Councilmember Christensen that this is the future, and I think we should be on the cutting edge and have this as part of our assets for our community.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ross, did the RAC 8 committee discuss this, or haven't you met recently here?
This was gone over, I believe, in 2016 as a request for capital, and I think it did go in front of the cable committee at that time, so.
Okay.
And then it went in front of the appropriate CIP.
But you haven't met
Steps.
this year yet?
I'm sorry?
You haven't met this year in 2017?
Yes, we met once, but this was already approved as a 2017 budgetary item,
Yeah.
so.
And Councilman Christensen was right. It's the user fee that paid for it, and we used to have a special fund just for the RAC 8 balance. We did put it in the general fund now, but it is user fees that pay for it. It's not the taxpayers.
Councilmember Rasmus.
If we didn't have this $14,000 unit, will that affect people being able to view what's on RAC 8?
For that particular channel, yes.
How will it affect it?
It wouldn't be broadcast, well, the channel was promised to us by charter as a high-definition channel, and it wouldn't be able to be broadcast that way. I'm not even certain it would be able to be broadcast, so.
You wouldn't be able to see it with regular?
Correct, I don't believe it's getting converted down to an analog channel, like the other channels that we currently have are, so.
Okay, so is there anything that's being broadcast in high def now that we're not getting? Because
No.
we haven't utilized that?
No, we don't have any high-definition channels currently being broadcast at this time. We only have the 3, and they're all in analog.
Okay, what would we see as being a high definition program?
We could, well, one thing we were looking at was community events and sporting events, that we could broadcast those in high definition.
Does that affect how they're recorded to allow that?
Not necessarily. There would be different recording equipment sometimes required for that, but not always. So
And do we have that equipment?
we do.
Councilmember Alvarado.
How many communities are lined up to have high-definition television like this?
For local access, currently, we are only the second one in the state that's been given a high-definition channel, so.
Is it your opinion that this improves the viewing experience for the local community?
I would say so. It's no different than current channels are getting broadcast in high definition on network TV or cable TV, that you can see a difference in the channel.
And I'm understanding that this has already been approved in 2016?
It was 2017 capital improvement that it was put on, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Nelson, followed by Rasmus.
I was simply going to make a motion to approve the agenda item is reallocation. Is that what we're looking for? I'm trying to find the action item. Sorry.
Motion been made and seconded. Additional discussion. Councilmember Rasmus.
Well, I'm back down to money crunching and robbing Peter to pay Paul. And when we talk about all of the expenses that we have, and when I think about quality of life and what's going to bring somebody to town, whether it's a business, whether it's somebody to move here, if I had $14,000 to put into playground equipment, or if I had $14,000 to put into HD on RAC 8, I'm going to go the other way.
Seeing no additional discussion, all in favor of the motion as presented to approve this item, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That motion does pass. Next, we have our first public hearing, which is consideration of the discontinuation of Willmar Municipal Utilities District Heat System. Mr. Herron, our executive, or our general manager.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council members. This evening, as Mayor Calvin indicated, we have public hearings, or the council has set public hearings for consideration of decommissioning the district heat. Quick overview of the process. The district heat consisted of 400 customers at one time. Presently, the system is down to only 200 customers, and they continue to exit as we speak. If we continue the district heat and we want a reliable system, we're going to have to invest some money in the system, and it will require significant rate increases. Through one-on-one customer visits, as well as public meetings, Willmar Municipal Utilities solicited input regarding the sustainability of the system into the future, and tried to understand what the customers' desires are regarding the continuation of that. The outcome of that process led the Commission to adopt a resolution to decommission the district heat system pending council concurring, and to set a financial assistance program as a last resort financing mechanism for those that may require it.
Mr. Herron, we'll just address the district heat piece now. The second public hearing will be on the financial assistance.
Correct. And with me tonight is our Utility Commissioner, Justin Mattern, as well.
Thanks for being here, Justin.
With that, I'll open it up to questions for the council. It was a very high-level recap, but
Actually, we'll hold a public hearing first, and then we'll bring it to council.
thank you.
Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing, bring it to council. Council, what are your wishes? Would you like to have discussion first?
Yeah.
Mr. Herron would like to have discussion before we entertain a motion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a few emails over the weekend when, like, Litchfield lost power, and people were saying, well, if we discontinued the central heating here, Willmar could be in the same situation. That's not going to affect our electric service one bit, will it?
No, the district heat by itself will not. To expand on that to some degree, the plant, our power plant that we have generates on a daily basis about approximately 5 megawatts or 5,000 kilowatts of electricity. We need to generate that much to provide enough heat for our district heat customers. So that's why the plant is running. With the decommissioning of district heat, we have the ability to look at other power supply resources. As we, discussed, and with the presentation that we presented to the council a number of meetings back, it was indicated that there's a potential for in excess of about $2 million savings in additional power supply costs. That's when we get into the power plant and power supply itself. By decommissioning district heat does not affect how we do business. However, it does give the Utility Commission and the community an opportunity at looking at how do we prepare for the future. With that said, to directly answer your question, Litchfield lost power. From what I understand, they lost a transmission line coming into the community. Could that happen here? Yes. Would our power plant be able to pick that up? Our power plant is capable, as we speak today, of generating about 15 megawatts of power. This time of year, we peak at about, I'm going to say, 45 megawatts, 45, top end 50. So the power plant would provide half, slightly less than half of the power that we were to need in the event transmission went down. Is there a better way to mitigate that risk? The commission is looking at those opportunities constantly, looking at what we can do to provide reliable power into the community. At this point in time, as we speak, we have one main substation in the town. It's referred to as a Willmar substation. It's on the south side of town, out there by the Mills property, kind of behind them. We are in the process of building a second. It's referred to the Pram substation. We are in the design process. That'll provide a second feed into this community. So in the event that our transmission line is taken out that feeds the community, we will have a second resource there. And in addition to that, I'm not sure on the time frame of it, but GRE has indicated to us that in their long-range plans, they are looking at bringing a third line into the community. So different ways to mitigate. Typically, transmission build-out is a cheaper alternative to mitigate that type of risk than to have a plant such as ours. In addition to that, when we started this process, the scope of work that was approved by the commission as we look at preparing for the future, district heat and the power plant are tied together as we speak today. If the district heat is decommissioned, gives us opportunity on the power supply side, and our goal at the commission level is to find the balance between rates, reasonable rates, competitive rates with our neighboring power providers, and reliability. And our goal is to try and find that balance at about 25% local generation, which would consist of, as we envision it today as we speak, we do not have a final plan put in place yet because that'll come once the district heat's decommissioned, but we're looking at bringing in a new gen set, a new 10 megawatt generator is what's being looked at if we can balance the cost of that gen set with utility rates and remaining competitive. If we bring a new 10 megawatt generator in, we presently have 12 megawatts of diesel. It's referred to as diesel generation. You'll see the semi-trailers that sit over at our southwest and at our northeast substations. We have 6 megawatts at each. That are a total of 12 megawatts, in addition to adding 10, if that's where we end up. Again, it's hypothetical, we're studying it, but that's our vision, that's our scope of work that was approved by the commission, and staff's challenge to see if we can meet the expectations set out in that scope of work. At that point, we'd have 22 megawatts of generation that we would still have locally if that were to come to fruition, and 25% would give us, pushing 30% local generation on our peak summer days. So that's how we'd look at mitigating that risk between build-out of transmission and possibly adding an additional 10 megawatts of new generation. And a new generation would be, a type of generators today are quick start. You can have them online in a couple minutes. So versus
And the ones you
our plant.
have now, you're building structures for them, so they won't be sitting on trailers, right?
That's a good question. It's been talked about. However, as we're going forward, we're looking at the investment that it's going to take to put those units in trailers, or the units that are in the trailers in a facility. They could end up in a facility yet, but we're also looking at the possibility of leaving them in those trailers for a few more years and then maybe putting 2 new generators in as we can, financially prepare for it. Those are all more decisions to come. But yeah, it's a good question. It's been talked about. It's been in our capital plan for a few years. However, we're trying to put together a vision for the future that is long-term, not just short-term, and that's where that piece comes into play. Why spend the money on those buildings if in long-term, if the plant is decommissioned, and our better resources would be two two gas generators versus the diesels. Diesels are considerably more expensive to operate. But at this point, I don't know. In the end, they could be put in buildings yet. So we have not finished that part of our study yet and our modeling of the system to determine just where are we going to be with generation.
All right.
But those are the pieces to the puzzle.
By eliminating the cooling towers, it should not affect our electricity.
That would be correct. But eliminating the cooling towers by itself will not affect the deliverability of electricity. The deliverability of electricity will be affected with the next piece of the process, looking at our generation and do we maintain that generation for the future of the community, or do we look at improvements?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to understand the effect that decommissioning the heating system has on the power plant. Are you saying that the power plant is going to be gone then, completely?
The decommissioning of the district heating system allows for opportunity to make changes at the plant. We need to, before we're in conjunction with exploring the opportunities that are available, we have to look at power supply. We have to have power supply contracts in place to replace the power coming out of the plant, both energy and capacity. So district heat, by shutting it down, gives us the latitude to run or not run the plant, but with district heat, the plant has to run. So
the answer to my question is yes, the power plant will not be used.
no, that decision hasn't been made yet.
But that's an option, though. You're saying that
It's an option.
decommissioning the heating system, I understand that so many megawatts are used to power that.
Yep.
And that'll be gone, but we will not be, an option is to not use the power plant for producing any power.
That would be an option, but that option has not been vetted out yet. But that is definitely an option.
Do we know when it'll be vetted out? I've heard concerns from, of course, employees
Sure.
over there.
We are in that process, the commission, staff and the commission. We have moved into that phase of the process now, being that we're at the point we are with the decommissioning of district heat. When we started the process a year ago, we were looking at both district heat and power supply together. And it's a very overwhelming process. A lot of pieces, the what-if pieces. If we continue to provide district heat, we need this type of generation and it has to run. If we decommission district heat, then we have different alternatives available to us for generation. But what was consistent there was the cost to maintain a reliable system for district heat. So therefore, we separated the two. We said, let's address district heat first and then come back to power supply and generation. So we are picking that piece up again. I would envision in 6 months, 6 to 9 months max, we will have an answer for you regarding power supply and generation.
My question on the option is then, using that option of not, or
Shutting it down?
decommissioning the power plant, basically.
Okay.
Does that decrease the cost of electricity to the community?
Yes. That, as the presentation we provided to the council, depending on what we can procure other power supply for and what we put in for replacement generation, as indicated, a 10 megawatt unit, there's a potential there for $2 million a year.
Okay, I understand now where you're coming from and the decommissioning, how it affects the power plant. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question.
The $2 million is just on the cost for the district heat piece. That's not the total piece for all power generation? Or is that all power
The
generation?
$2 million is savings is purely on power supply side. There will not be a $2 million savings by shutting down district heat. It's on the power supply side where that savings is.
Councilmember Romeski, followed by Alvarado.
Well, as the liaison to the utilities, I want to commend you and the commission. They they took this task not lightly. They did hours of research. There were critics on the commission that wanted to make sure that they were making sure that they crossed every T, dotted every I, and it just is not economically feasible. I mean, it is where we're at. My concerns, and I shared them even back when we started, was with our employees and with our customers. I know you said we haven't made the decision to decommission, but if we were not to use those boilers, have you started to address the safeguards for our employees, number one? And I know it's a separate hearing after this, but I think they're intimately connected. The financial assistance program, what those rates are, and the time that we're doing to convert, that we did that for those customers. Don't get into it a lot because I guess we're going to look at that separately. But those two issues were pivotal. Maybe you can comment on those.
Sure. The financial assistance program that's coming up next is not tied to the transitioning of our power plant staff. Those are two separate items. However, it's a good question. We've been looking at in our commission and as staff, we are very concerned about our employees there. We have excellent employees there. You know, I've said that before. They're very talented individuals, and we have a staff of 20 over at the plant. The utility as a whole, we have a staff of 24. We have we have a staff of 54. We have approximately 40 in the operations, 20 in the plant. At the point in time when the commission directed staff to reach out to our customers back in February, we knew that we had to start looking at what can we do for our employees, because our employees are well aware of the fact that once the district heat is decommissioned, the need to run the power plant is diminished. We need to keep it up, as I indicated earlier, until we have replacement power, but we have options. And they're well aware of that. They also know that that plant is costing us 15 cents to run. We're selling power average wholesale or average retail power supplies, we're selling it at 10 cents. So our employees are well aware of that. So they know that if the plant does not have to run because of district heat, that as a utility, as a community, that we are going to look at other power supply options. So we started looking at what we could do. We reached out to jobs and training to see what programs are available there. We actually, at this point in time, we have 2 positions open within the utility that we held open, that opened up last summer, last fall, that we held open in anticipation of where things could potentially go. And as we go forward, we're going to hold more over. In fact, today, and we've had a number of meetings at staff level as well. We've had a couple of labor committee meetings talking about the options that our commission would like to see us pursue to provide continued or different employment opportunity for our employees. And as of today, we have a meeting with city staff, with Mr. Holland and HR and Public Works Director to talk about what kind of opportunities would be on the city side as well. So we are actively researching and pursuing opportunities for our power plant employees. So any assistance that can be provided through the city side would be greatly appreciated by myself, by the commission, as well as the employees. So.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Backing up, you talked about that 10 megawatt generator. Where does that go? Or what is that? I'm missing that.
Okay. It would be you can buy small home unit generators. This is just a grown-up size. It's a 10 megawatt. We would hook it into the system, whether it be 2 5 megawatts or 1 unit 10 megawatts, and it would be tied into the system, and it would produce power when we need it in the event there's an outage or.
Okay, so it wouldn't be housed at the power plant currently?
I can't answer that question at this time. That is one location that's being considered, as well as 2 others.
Okay.
So.
That's why I was a little cloudy. I didn't understand where that was going to be placed. I was thinking it was going to be placed, but that's in study.
And study yet, correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Nope, you're welcome. Good question.
Is there anybody that wishes to make a motion?
I'll make that motion to discontinue the Willmar Municipal Utilities District Heat System as of July 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Additional discussion. I just have one question, and I know that you and I talked earlier before the meeting, and I know that you have vetted the date. Can you go into a little bit explaining why you selected July 1st of 2020? I believe the state law says that we have to give a 2-year notice, and this is a 3-year notice. So can you explain to those listening, you've just explained it costs extra money to keep the plant running, but yet your recommendation is still to expend those additional dollars for additional year. Can you explain to the citizens why you're doing that?
Sure, Honorable Mayor, Council. That is correct. We're talking about what it costs us to keep the plant running. And yes, with district heat, well, let me back up. Statute requires 2 years. We have to give our customers a minimum of 2 years, as Mayor Kelvin alluded to. Through the process, our outreach process to our customers, all our commercial customers, we actually held individual meetings with our commercial customers. We also held two public meetings for all our customers, residential as well as commercial customers, and we had an additional meeting with our contractors. And through that process, one of many concerns that were expressed and taken into consideration was a time frame that our customers could have for the transitional period, as well as our contractors. We still have, as I indicated earlier, roughly 200 customers, roughly 150 residential, 50 commercial, somewhere in that vicinity, the numbers are, that have to make that transition. Now, residential customers can more than likely make that transition quicker than a lot of the commercial customers were. At least some of the larger commercial customers that we have will have to go through the plan specification and bidding process. So through that process, taking into consideration both the utilities financial side of it and the community's consideration for the community regarding our options, as well as trying to be sensitive to our customers and contractors, both for our customers to financially prepare and transition over, as well as our contractors to complete the work, is what drove our commission's decision in granting 1 extra year in the process.
So a follow-up question to that then, in your explanation. So we started out this process with 220 approximately customers. Today you're telling us we're down to 200. So we've already lost.
I believe, Honorable Mayor, I believe we're at 210 today. I think since the first of the year, we had 11 customers drop off. So we're 29, something like that.
Okay. So we've got a few of the early adopters that have dropped off, that have came on board and said, you know what, we're going a different direction. We know how society is, we'll have some stragglers at the end. So if we have one customer that's a residential customer, that's all we have left, and we have to pay for a full year of keeping the plant operating, we have to do that.
That would be correct.
If the council chooses to go with the 3-year notice.
That would be correct. We have to provide district heat. We would look at our options. As our customers drop off, we have 2 drivers there that'll change how we do business as far as providing district heat and how we run our plant. As the customers drop off, that's one issue, and the other employees. It takes us, like I said, we got 20 employees there, and it takes a minimum of 12, and that's a minimum. 14, 16 would be ideal, even on an interim basis. But as we talk about it at staff level, how do we proceed forward? Staffing is another issue. So yes, if we have one customer there, there's a good chance that we would probably reduce our costs or minimize those costs by running what we refer to as a package boiler. What that is, we have one boiler over at the power plant that it doesn't generate electricity, it just provides a heat source to warm up the water to provide district heat. However, that it comes with a price tag as well. So, but you're absolutely right, Mayor Calvin. If we have one customer there that last year, we still have to provide district heat somehow.
Councilmember Christensen, followed by Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. What becomes of the existing heating system? Just leave it in the ground?
Yes, the district heating system would be left in the ground as we move forward, street project and stuff would probably be removed at that point in time, but for the time being, it would be left.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Herron, was there any other consideration other than giving the consumer or customers an extra year to transition? Was there any other benefit to the utilities in making that a 3-year plan rather than a 2-year?
From the utilities perspective, to go 3 years probably creates more challenges for us than benefit because of the extra year to run it and for staffing reasons. We have to keep the plant staffed. And an extra year, yes, it gives staff an opportunity if we're not able to create opportunity within, and that's where the value of creating opportunity within the utilities, and hopefully we can partner with the city in creating that opportunity so that we can keep staff to keep the plant running. So it does push it out some, but the concern or the drivers for extending it was more or less financially for the customers and their ability to transition over.
I'm seeing no additional questions, so council, are you ready to vote? So the motion has been made and seconded to approve a resolution discontinuing the Willmar Municipal Utilities District Heat System as of July 1, 2020. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Metzke.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
And that resolution does pass. Next, we'll open
Thank you.
the public hearing for the consideration of a resolution to approve the Willmar Municipal Utilities Financial Assistance Program. I'll open that public hearing. Mr. Herron.
Again, in your packet, you have the resolution, as I indicated earlier. The commission adopted or is proposing a financial assistance program. It's mainly a last resort financing mechanism for our customers. The commission feels that it is the role of our community financial institutions to provide the financial assistance if it is required by our customers in the transitioning process, as well as some of our contractors, as well as Centerpoint provides financing as well. So as you look at the resolution, you'll see that it is prepared as such as a last resort mechanism for the customers.
So this is a public hearing. Is anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it to the council table. Council, what are your wishes?
I'll move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the Willmar Municipal Utility Financial Assistance Program and delegate responsibility for executing and administering the program to Willmar Municipal Utilities. Discussion. Councilmember Metzke.
You have in here that there's a 5-year repayment window with a 9% interest rate, which should be very unattractive. But my question is, you also have that the new system that goes in must be electric. Did you make any considerations for any other systems that would be put in, and what led you to an electric-only clause?
Mr. Herron.
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Metzke. Looking at that, if the commission felt that if we're going to finance it, we'll provide electric type heat service. They have basically available to them air source heat pumps as well as your traditional electric heat. CenterPoint finances gas. Contractors do financing as well as our lending agencies. So this program is last resort. We had actually a long conversation with our attorney, Mr. Scott, regarding a program. Do we have a program at all? And in the end, the decision was made to roll out a program for basically as an equity issue, that if customers want to finance, it's there available at the front end. That way, in the event we do have to provide financing to any one individual, no one else can come back and say, why weren't we afforded that opportunity on the front end? So that's why it's being addressed on the front end of the program. So.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to approve the Willmar Municipal Utilities Financial Assistance Program and delegate the responsibility for executing and administering the program to Willmar Municipal Utilities. That motion is made and discussed. The seconded, it has been discussed as well. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
And that resolution passes as well. Mr.
Honorable
Herron, I
Mayor,
just wanna thank
Council,
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Herron, I just want to thank you for your time in putting this all together. I know your staff has worked very diligently on it, and I know your commission has worked on it as well. I want to thank them for their work. I know this has not gone easy, and the process has been not probably as smooth as you had hoped. I know that there's been some bumps along the road, and you and I have had numerous conversations about that, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. So thank you for providing good, reliable service, electrical service, water, and heat for our citizens. And as you go through this next step, know that the council is behind you and supports you. I think you've seen that by the votes tonight. So good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, and we'll be back in front of the council here as we proceed with our power supply planning and our generation. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Justin, thank you for being here as well. Thank you for serving on the commission. Appreciate that. Next, we have City Council Open Forum, Betty Holt. And Betty, if you just state your name and address, and you do have 3 minutes, and it's on the timer, so don't let that alarm you. And it's only there for your benefit, not anybody else's, so feel free to speak freely.
Okay. I'm Betty Holt. My address is 7251 Highway 71 South, Willmar, Minnesota. Well, good evening, everyone. I already told you who I am, but I am a registered nurse at Rice Hospital. I've been there for 27 years. As of April 1st, I started working on the 3 surge, as it was called, the surgical floor with surgical patients. Throughout the years, it progressed to 4 surge, then adult health care, and now the ambulatory care department. I'm very proud of working there for all these years, as I think all of our staff are very proud. I am here to ask you to make sure that nurses have a voice in any decisions made about our hospital's future with CentraCare. It is very disturbing to learn that the affiliation is a done deal without any involvement of the people who provide the direct care to patients, and that doesn't make any sense. It also hasn't involved the citizens of Willmar as well, since it is a city-owned hospital. As a bedside nurse, I am committed to providing the best care possible to our patients in our local community hospital. Nurses are very concerned about Rice Hospital becoming what amounts to a feeder hospital that forces patients to travel long distances from Willmar to receive care. We want to remain a community hospital that cares for our friends, neighbors, and families. Nurses and all staff are still in the dark about how this will work and affect us. It is very upsetting to receive vague or no answer at all to important questions about the future of our pensions, insurance, wages, and other important issues. We stand to lose the pensions that we rely upon for retirement with dignity. That is a major concern for staff, and we ask you to find a way to keep our pensions. We asked you at our last meeting to include nurses in whatever decisions may remain. Nurses and all staff are experts at our hospital. We have valuable opinions and ideas to offer. We are asking again Make sure our voices are heard. Please put a nurse on any committees or groups that discuss or make decisions about our hospital and our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mrs. Gail Hawkins. Gail? Name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Gail Hawkinson, 7340 26th Street, Northeast, Willmar, Minnesota. On behalf of myself, I represent the Hawkinson family, the Hawkinson Land LLC. The Hawkinson family wants to thank the entire City Council, Mayor Calvin, Administrator Mr. Holland, Attorney Mr. Scott, and everyone else that has given their time and attention to helping with our agricultural deferred assessments. I still do not understand how we can be reassessed from the new street project, 16th Street, 17th Street, and 13th Avenue for 2017. But the exact same number of $80.09 a foot is being used on our project, which was done in 1990, 1991, 92, and 05. I believe the new number for our land should be our assessment price, increased or decreased using the new bid prices being applied to the work that was done on our project, not a totally different project. Just as a point of interest, I believe the Menards outlot assessments were even allowed to expire. Ours are 27 years old and are still going up. The assessment number I was given to use on the purchase agreement with the Hawkinson Land LLC and Schweiters FRE Holdings was $211,244.65. If the 108 feet we do not own that were taken off that number, it would be $200,294.53. The current number you have now given me, $246,823.40, which is actually an increase of $62,611.65 since 2015. You take off the 108 feet on project number 9002, and project 9101 would be $234,133.39. which is still a $49,921.64 increase since 2015. Since then, the bids have gone down. That being said, I'm asking the council to vote that we continue to use the $211,244.65 price, and I won't even ask you to deduct for the 108 feet. I feel we would all be standing by an accepted number when the purchase agreement for this sale was written on April 5th, 2017. The city did not even have a new number for us until May 20th, and the new assessments were not voted on until June 5th. I'm only asking that this number be used for this sale until it is canceled or closes. If the sale does not close, I would sincerely appreciate someone giving me the time to understand exactly how these assessments are being calculated for our property and other agricultural deferred assessment properties. Once again, I thank everybody involved.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Gail Hawkinson Deferred Agricultural Assessment Amount. Mr. Peterson. I'm sorry, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. At your previous meeting, at the work session, this item was on the agenda, and you heard from Ms. Hawkinson, who you also just heard from now, and she presented a letter from her attorney. So I looked at the process the city uses to administer deferments on agricultural property of special assessments. And it's certainly true that the city's process, at least in my experience in looking at other cities and what they do, is a little unusual. Your assessment policy contemplates that the project cost for the project and the year it was constructed goes on the certificate of deferment, but that resolution that gets recorded with the county states clearly, one, that there would be no interest charge on that, but two, the amount of the assessment will be calculated so that it would be the amount of the project cost in the year it was constructed or the year the deferment expires, whichever is greater. That applies both to assessments as well as tapping fees. And it appears, again, in consultation with staff, that staff has correctly followed that policy in coming up with the figure for the assessments, given that the deferral is expiring in 2017. That would be based on the 2017 year project costs. As I said, this is unusual. From what I've seen in other cities, the more typical approach would be for cities to simply certify the amount of the assessment, the principal amount, and the year of the project which is being assessed, and then include an interest rate, typically the interest rate that other properties would pay as they are paying it when they don't have a deferment. And then at the end of the deferment, whenever the property is sold or developed and the deferment expires, you'd calculate the interest that has accrued since the time of deferment, and that would be the amount that would be due. I had staff calculate what that amount would be. It would actually be significantly more than, it turns out, the 2017 dictated cost is. That would be something like $318,000 and change. So this policy is unusual, but as compared to other cities, I think it actually works to the property owner's benefit. There is some justification to recalculate to remove the 108 feet that were conveyed previously by this property owner. Those assessments run with the land. In theory, they are the responsibility of the current property owner. They maybe should have been paid at the time that conveyance occurred, but they weren't. In any event, today, you could be justified in recalculating based on the 108 feet that are no longer owned by this property owner. Staff had calculated that amount to be $240,018.41 based on the material provided in your open forum. I think that number is somewhat under dispute. I don't know if Public Works Director Christensen has any insight into that discrepancy. Ms. Hawkinson is arguing that the correct calculation would be, instead of $240,000 and change, $234,133.39. I'm not sure if staff is prepared to address that discrepancy, but in any event, conceptually, I think it does make sense to agree to reduce that assessment to remove the 108 feet from the projects that were assessed. All that being said, I don't think there's a legal requirement that you make any further reductions. The City Council certainly has that discretion. Your assessment policy is a policy. It acknowledges that there may be circumstances where you want to make some deviations from strict application of the policy. You could certainly do that. You've heard from the property owner about why she's making her request. It's not the recommendation of myself or staff that you make a further reduction than to remove the 108 feet, but there's nothing legally to prohibit the council from doing that. I understand that the entire assessment policy will likely be coming before the council at a work session some point in the near future. This is certainly an item you might want to address to see if you want to continue to administer it the way you have. But obviously for today, you're applying the policy that is in place today. That's what staff has done. So I guess the recommendation would be to make the reduction based on removing the 108 feet that have already been conveyed to a different property owner. I think it would be sufficient for council to give us that direction, and staff can double check those figures based on the policy direction of the council to carry that out, whether that ends up being the $240,000 or the $234,000 that the parties disagree on right now. But if you gave us the policy direction to reduce the assessment by recalculating to remove the 108 feet that she no longer owns, that this property owner no longer owns, that would get done, and staff would make that calculation.
Public Works Director Christensen or Planning Development Director Peterson, have either of you done the calcs so that you can tell us what the number you came up with was?
Mayor, members of the council, I've gone over the calcs. I didn't do them initially, but I have gone over them. That 240,000, I'm not seeing I can't remember what the 234 is unless that's a complete removal of that 108 feet, in which I am not recommending. My recommendation for the 240 and change would be to reduce that 108 feet to the construction costs at the time of that sale.
Okay. So, council, in front of us is a request for the Hawkinson family for deferred agricultural assessment amount, and they're asking for concessions to be made to that. Our city attorney has reviewed that, and between staff and the city attorney, they are recommending that we use the numbers that, minus the 108 feet that we have on file, with the addition of the cost of the assessment of that 108 feet up until the time that they made the sale. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's worded a little differently than I would have, but I believe you stated it correctly.
Well, how about you word it yourself? We want it right here.
Mayor, members of the council, I would recommend the assessment policy be followed in as much as the balance of the property being charged the assessments on the today's bid prices for that project, and the 108 feet be charged at the, I think it was 2005 or whenever that was sold, bid prices.
So that's staff's recommendation. Is there a council motion before we begin discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll have discussion first. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad, Mr. Scott, that you put in that second to last sentence in there, that we have some flexibility and some discretion to deviate from this policy. As I've said many times in the past, all these policies, rules, regulations, state statutes are guidelines to go by. There is gray area. We do have discretion as a council. Now, Ms. Hawkinson made the contract with this Schweeters or whoever that company was for that property using the $211,000, $244,000 assessment. If they purchase that property and put this big, beautiful building out there, the property tax we're going to receive from that is going to be many, many, many times what we're getting here over the years. If Ms. Hawkinson has to go to that company and say, well, this is what the council decided, and it's $30-some thousand more than what I had in my contract. I would like to rethink this or recalculate it. Now, I know the contract's signed already. However, if this sale did not go through because of that, woe is us. I think we should use the discretion we have and leave it at $211,244.65. Just for that fact, and for the fact that that family has been pretty generous to the city and the school district and the county and all the farmland that they've had, and they sold the land of the school over there, and they actually gave them more land than what they were purchasing. There was an extra, 8 or 10 acres over there that the school is actually thinking of selling to recoup some money. So they've done their due diligence and helped the city and the county and the school district out, and so I would make a motion that we put the assessment at $211,244.65 for those reasons.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to put the assessments on the said property at $211,244.65. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Hawkinson did the right thing. She did call the city and find out what the assessments would be in April, and that was $211,000. She was told it would go up after May 1st, but she had to go to the Planning Commission and get the zoning corrected from ag to business. And then she had to negotiate the purchase price, and I'm not sure what she's selling the land for, but there's not too many people that are willing to pay that, let alone $211,000 in assessments. And let's just get it done with. She's not complaining about the 108 feet. Let's get a new development going out there, because it's going to be a great entrance to the city of Willmar. So.
Councilmember Meske.
What was that number again, Mr. Christensen, 240.
211,244,
No, I've
He's
heard
thinking
that
another
number. What's your number?
$18.
$18.41.
Okay.
Correct.
But they would, according to what the city attorney said, they would calculate to make sure it was correct,
Yep.
knowing the intent of the council. Councilmember Schwantes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern, it would be one thing if the date had not been given for which this was a valid dollar amount. My concern is if we make an exception here, where do you start and stop? Where do you not honor what that assessed value is in the calculations? It was a quote, the date was given for which it was good through, and I think that should be honored. Meaning the deadline date of that.
Seeing and hearing no, Councilmember Nelson?
Looking at the numbers and reading Mr. Scott's email to us in answer to that, it looks to me that both sides perhaps could have done this a little differently. And I was hoping that we would find a compromise and maybe some middle ground versus that we both would give and take a little on the figures that we are there. And if you look at halfway in between, perhaps we could take a look at 225,000 and say we both learned a lesson and maybe perhaps how things need to be done the next time. I appreciate staff's recalculating and whether we're at the right place or not, but I guess I'd like to see us find some middle ground here and not to set a precedence one way or the other, but for us perhaps to simplify our calculation and to strengthen the deadlines that we put in place and perhaps our communication. So I'd make an amendment to suggest that we go to 225,000 in the middle.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second to that motion? See no second, the motion dies for a lack of a second. Councilmember Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we have the executive director of the EDC here, Mr. Aaron Bachman, and I'm wondering what his take on this would be, as far as maybe losing the deal. Is it worth asking him the question?
I think it's in front of the council now. I think, I've worked with Mr. Bachman enough to know that he would be very supportive of getting the deal done. And if that's not your intent, you can certainly speak, but I think your intent would be to get the deal done. Councilmember Maskey.
I missed the last meeting, so it's kind of the first time I'm hearing of this, and I apologize for that, but this is obviously a problem we have to fix. And so this aside, my bigger concern is we can't have this happening every time we do an assessment. So to me, it's much more critical to fix this. And so, speaking to that part of what Audrey was just offering, we have got to fix this. And so sooner than later. I know you say, well, we'll get it done. This one's got to come back fairly quick.
I think it's scheduled to come back in July.
July, okay, great.
Leads the date. And just, our staff did everything right.
Well, I
they
understand that.
corresponded clearly, and you weren't here for the last meeting, so I'll just recap it, but they clearly told them that if you do it after this date, there's going to be different cost. We don't know what that cost is today. We'll get it to you as soon as we can, and it took a little bit of time. So, we're at the point of moving forward here now, and staff will certainly bring something back to us. So I think we're ready to vote, and I'm going to go for a roll call. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Nay.
Osnes.
Nay.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Nay.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Nay.
3 ayes, 4 nays.
So that motion passes.
Fails.
I'm sorry, fails, I'm sorry. Is there another motion the council would like to make? Councilmember Alvarado.
Mr. Mayor, didn't she come up with an alternative number of 234, 133, 39? No? What does that represent?
She was doing the calculations of that the number would be 234, 133, 39, using the figures that the staff had given her if you remove the 108 feet. So she was removing the 108 feet totally, not the 108 feet, and then have it calculated to 2005 at the time of the sale. She was removing the 108 feet.
Okay.
That's where that number comes from. Councilmember Fagerly.
That 108 feet is for what the state purchased for the ramp coming off of the bypass there, which city staff still had her owning it. She had to inform us that she doesn't own it anymore. So,
Councilmember Nelson.
I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Christensen back there again. Did you indicate that there should be another calculation of this, somehow recalculating that 108 feet?
Public Works Director Christensen.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Nelson, no. What I was indicating is that the calculations were done correctly in that it was using 2017 bid prices for all of the property frontage except 108 feet, which 2000, and forgive me for the date, but I believe 2005 prices were used, whenever that sale was made.
So he's agreeing that that's the right figure.
It was 2005. I have that in front of me as well.
I will again make a motion to split the difference. I don't know if someone wants to come up with a calculation.
Well, I think your 225 is pretty close.
To split the difference and do the 225?
Second?
Motion been made and seconded to put the assessments at $225,000 for this piece of property. Discussion. Councilmember Meske, followed by Osmus.
I'll be quick, since our policy is complicated and seems to be in need of work. I think we owe it to meet someone halfway on this particular piece, so I speak in favor of some concession by the city in this case.
Councilmember Osmus.
I must be missing, other than that they're very good people and that they have done good things with their property. I understand that, but they were assessed the value, they signed the contract, they missed the deadline of May 1st. If the price had gone down, it would have been less. Okay, but unfortunately, the price went up. So then they were assessed more, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The city already recalculated that without the 108 feet and came up with the 240,018.41, correct?
Correct.
And the city attorney is advising us that that's what we should do.
The city attorney is advising us that if we follow our policy, that's what we should do. But as Councilmember Christensen stated, it does state in there that the council does have the ability to, as the motioners have said now, and the previous motioners as well, have said is that, we should make a concession on this particular case based on some history.
The history that they've given land in the past, that they've been generous. That's
Know that they were told $211,244.65, and that's the number they used in their purchase price.
okay. Because I see, we have flexibility if we find cause to do so.
Councilmember Christensen, followed by Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been on the council 23 years. Rick's been on longer than me. We have a bit of wisdom. This is the first time I think we've come up with something with this policy. I don't recall this policy coming up before. It maybe has, but I don't recall it. What Ms. Hawkinson is asking for is not tax abatement or TIF districts. And folks, in the last couple of years, we've been given millions of dollars of tax abatement and TIF districts to large companies who have hundreds of millions of dollars. And we can't do this request from a local small person that doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it's not good. It isn't good for us. Once again, and I bring this up many times, that the small person just gets stepped on in Willmar. I hear it quite often. And this is a small price to pay for the tax that we're going to receive in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years if this company goes out there. If this company goes out there, there is always that chance. And we need to get it done at the lower rate, the motion that failed. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but it's just, if we can't do this for someone else, we might as well just shut the rest of the public out. I'm upset.
Councilmember Nelson.
I offered this as a compromise because in the correspondence that was offered by the Hawkinson family, they acknowledged they were aware of the figure. I do believe that perhaps there could have been better communication on both sides. This is a very important deal. I think it is a fair way to resolve this by coming up with a compromise. If we learn anything from this, hopefully it will be better communication and perhaps to simplify something that apparently is quite unusual. So I see the value of this development and the importance of this going forward. I do believe Ms. Hawkinson also acknowledged that in her statements last meeting, and so I think the compromise is a fair way to go for the council regarding this piece of property.
Well, I'm going to speak to this at this point. Folks, we're talking right now of $225,000 that we don't have today. You have a bird in your hand or you have an empty hand. And we have heard good testimony here of upstanding citizens that tried to do the right thing. Was the communication as good as it could have been? Probably not. On both sides, as has been referenced. But I think in our documentation, the Hawkinsons identified the fact that they were told the number, but they didn't really think it was going to go up quite that much as what was said 2 weeks ago. If we don't accept this, and we lose the sale, and we lose the development, we lose a lot of tax dollars here. This $211,000 has been sitting on the books for quite some time since the development was done. Didn't just happen this year. It's not money that we're going to pay next year. It's money the city's already paid. We've already paid this money out. This money's coming into us. And I contemplated saying something the first time around, but I feel it very important at this point. We need to get this deal done. And if this deal falls through, it's a bad deal for the city of Willmar. I agree with that wholeheartedly. We have policies in place. We have to follow our policies. I agree with that. But it appears to me that the city attorney has told us that we have some leeway here. And if we have that leeway, here's a prime example of when we should use some of that leeway. So I would urge the council to consider this greatly before they make their vote. The motion on the table is to set the assessments at $225,000. Mr. Scott, can we ask the Hawkinsons if they're agreeable to that at this point, or can we not do that?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Hawkinson is here. You have the discretion to recognize her if you'd like to hear her response to the motion on the table. That would be appropriate.
Council, would that add value to your decision-making or not?
Yeah.
Ms. Hawkins, would you speak to the question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My calculation of $234,133.39 came directly off of your assessment sheets that got sent to me. And the 108 feet should not be paying for, because when the state took that land from us, it should have been paid when it was developed. And if the city didn't charge them for that when it was developed, I shouldn't have to be paying for that now. If you take project 9002, which is 1,140 feet, you subtract the 108 feet, it gives you a number of 1,032 feet. And if you take the assessment of this year, the new 2017, of $37.41, it comes to $38,607.12 for project 9002. On project 9101, it was 1,143 feet, .46, and if you subtract the 108 feet, it gives that project 1,035.46 feet, times the high assessment of this year of $80.09, it comes to a number of $82,929.99. And if I add that up to the other two assessments, project 9202 and 0501, that total is $234,133.39. And if I take the $211,244.65 that I was told and subtract the 108 feet that we do not own, it comes to $200,294.53, which I wasn't even asking for. I was willing to pay for those feet we don't use because that's the number I was given. Anybody got any questions? I mean, for this to have gone up $62,000 in 2 years, when it remained at $184,211.75 for years, till 2015. And since then, construction bids have gone down. And for us to get raised $62,611 is why we're upset. We're a family. We're not a business. This land has been in our family for 100 years. I'm not out here flipping real estate, trying to make some big bucks off of a deal I just made. This is from family land. And to raise assessment $62,611 since 2015, when they supposedly went down, I'm having a hard time understanding this. And I do hope that all this gets straightened out so everybody can understand where they're at in the future, because it has been a mess. When I sold the land to the school, our attorney got three different answers on the amount of assessments due. So it was even a mess then, but it got straightened out and it got paid. But to do a compromise, which should come then from the $200,294 and the $234,133, which you're saying now, you know, to compromise from the 211, which I still agree, you know, I'll pay for the 108 feet. That's the number I was given, and I will use that. And until this sale is done or hopefully closed, I'm just asking for that number.
So the motion in front of the council to consider is 225.
Okay,
And so the 225, I believe, was a midway point between the 240 and the 211.
But I don't know where he got 240. Evidently, they're only counting on one of the projects when there's two, 9002 and 9101. That brings it to 234,133.
Okay. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, if I could, Mayor and Council, I'd like to make just a couple points. I believe, having listened to the testimony today, what we're talking about, the discrepancy between the 240 that the city calculated and the 234 that Ms. Hawkinson calculated, I think it's the difference between if the city were just to forego all assessments on that 108 feet altogether because this property owner no longer owns that property, and the assessments in theory run with the land and should be the responsibility of the new property owner, even if they should have been paid at the time of the conveyance. Compared with what the city calculated, which would be if you just calculated the project cost of the year it was conveyed and still assessed for the 108 feet against this property owner. I think even though conceptually probably those assessments should have been paid at the time of the conveyance in 2005, I believe, I think there's cause for the city to just remove and forego the assessments on that 108 feet at this time because this property owner does not own that 108 feet. And legally, it's the responsibility of the current property owner because it runs with the land. So I think, this is kind of muddled, obviously, but I think there is cause to do that. So, where does that leave us? I mean, I'm not saying that anyone here in this room has done anything wrong. City staff applied the policy correctly. The property owner, before entering into the purchase agreement, called the staff to get the number. I think this situation is a demonstration that the policy, even though it's probably legal under the statute that authorizes deferments, does create some practical difficulties, and they did in this case because it's a moving target. The property owner needed a figure to put in the purchase agreement. She got it, and then under the city's policy, it went up. It went up before the sale could realistically close. I have no difficulty with the city making a compromise here and reducing the assessment. It can be at the 225. You can go with, council has latitude. That's a policy question. It's, you don't have to do what I'm saying. This is the council question, but there are, I think, extenuating circumstances that would justify it if you wanted to.
So, kind of the question to you, Ms. Hawkins, and we're putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
I mean, the motion on the table that we're getting ready to vote on right now is $225,000. And so, I mean, are you going to be okay with that, or are you going to?
Well, if we're going to compromise, we should compromise between taking the 108 feet off of the 211 and going with the 234 and somewhere in between there, which isn't 225, if we can get it down a little bit, you know.
220.
220,000 would be between
Is that-
whatever
Yep.
cited on
Yep.
here. And I would offer that as a friendly amendment.
I will
Make it at
accept that as a
220,000.
friendly.
There's a friendly amendment made to 220.
I will accept that, Mr. Mayor, if you accept it.
Who made that? Audrey made it.
Audrey made it. She accepted your friendly amendment.
Okay.
It's a friendly amendment because it's not substantial in nature. Councilmember Christensen.
I was about to offer 212 as a friendly amendment.
I like that better. He's way friendlier.
Okay, we have the petitioner stating that 220 would be in agreement with her. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, at our first retreat with this council, I mentioned, and we all agreed, that one of our priorities should be looking at all our past policies and changing them.
Right.
Have we changed one since? Maybe one, but we haven't been looking at them. And we got policies from probably the 1900s.
Let's stay to the motion, please.
It's pertinent to this question.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote again on the question. So the motion is to set the assessments on this piece of property at $220,000. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Sure.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
And that motion passes.
Thank all of you.
Thank you. And we're really looking forward to good property out there and a good project. And looking forward, as Councilmember Fagerly said, when people come into this town, they're going to see that excellent development that you did there. So thank you for all you've done for our community. So keep up the good work. And sorry this one got a little messy. Hopefully the next one will be a little cleaner.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mayor. Thank you, City Council.
Next, we have Oslo Meadows Special Assessment Public Hearing.
Make a motion to
Judy.
set a public hearing.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to set a special assessment public hearing for Oslo Meadows. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next is consider a resolution of municipal consent for Highway 12 portion of the Y project. Planning and Development Director Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, as a follow-up to the council meeting of 2 weeks ago, staff is back before the council requesting that the council adopt a resolution waiver for municipal consent. As part of the Y project, changes are being made to the alignment and geometrics of US Highway 12. We've talked about that at different times. It's been the subject of many hearings and discussions before the various public bodies. Under Minnesota statutes, there is a process called municipal consent, and cities are allowed to evaluate these changes, proposed changes to the highway system, and are also given the opportunity to approve or disapprove the project. In this particular case, staff does not believe that additional hearings are required. This process or this project has been very thoroughly vetted, and it's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the resolution for waiver of municipal consent.
Make a motion to approve the resolution for waiver of municipal consent.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Metzger.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is consideration of a memorandum of record for non-represented employees. Our HR Director, Ms. Buckingham.
Before you is what is considered a memorandum of record for the non-representative position employees listed as you see them. And this is strictly for salary increases. They will be following the benefits that will be in the personnel policy.
Council, we need to approve the list of non-represented positions, employees, and their salary increases as presented. This is the $2,000 that used to be in their deferred comp, and we moved it over into salary, and this is just a housekeeping, cleaning the language up.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is consideration of employment policy, practices, and procedures. Ms. Buckingham.
This policy had not been updated since 1995. I went and researched with the League of Minnesota cities' policy and adopted what they had into this policy. You will see several items crossed out that are either no longer, used. A lot of it had Labor Relations Committee in there, which we don't have anymore. So, like I said, I followed the League's policy and adopted it into ours.
Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the updated employment policies, practices, and procedures. Do we have a stipulation in there that if we go back to the Labor Relations Committee, that we can continue to do that? So can we leave that in place until the council makes a decision, which will not be done until the end of July?
Sure.
So with that amendment, those making the motion, are you okay with that?
It's fine.
Friendly amendment? Okay. Additional discussion? All those in favor, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Consideration of building maintenance job description, position, departmental placement. Ms. Buckingham.
We had brought this to you back in April and May, and you had requested that staff tell you where we'd like this position placed. And in talking with Public Works Director, we came to the conclusion that this position should stay under Public Works as it is now. And there were a few job description changes. I've highlighted them in yellow for you. Simple, things that this job requires of the person holding it.
So the recommendation is that we approve the position be placed in the Public Works General Unit, and that the changes to the job description as presented be adopted. Council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, Councilmember Maskey.
I'd just make sure that you clean up the description currently, because Supervisor is on the first page on the title, and then in your recurring header, it also is supervisor.
It's crossed out, supervisor is crossed out, and coordinator was put in.
I understand, but if you look at the line right underneath it,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
and then
Thanks, Sean.
the ongoing header, it's
Yeah.
the same way.
I will make that change.
Thank you.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 I'm sorry, hold on a minute here. Councilmember Fagerly.
I just have a question, if it's in Public Works, so if someone in Public Works wants to go to this position, they could bump somebody, or how does that work?
You mean as far as if this person that's currently in the position left?
Yeah.
We would post it, they'd have to apply for it.
It's in the general unit. It's not
It's
in
in the general unit.
It's under Public Works in the general unit.
Okay, so the street department guys aren't in the general unit?
No, they're in the Public Works unit.
Right.
So there's a difference?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Nelson.
And just following up with Sean's comments about that the word supervisor, it appears that it's in more places than that. Could we please have that updated and sent out to us?
Sure.
The corrections?
Sure.
Mr. Holland, can you work on that? Thank you. Additional questions? All those in favor of the motion to consider the building maintenance job description, position department placement, and for approval of that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is consider reallocation of funds for building maintenance coordinator position. I was going to wrap that into that motion, and I thought, well, we haven't talked about it yet, so.
Mayor, members of the council, in front of you, based on the position we just approved, or you just approved, was reallocating an additional $2,000 in the salaries line item and $300 in the employee pensions line item from the engineering budget, I believe, into the city hall budget to cover the increase in wages.
Council, we're being asked to consider a reallocation of funds in the building maintenance coordinator position, moving it from Public Works to City Hall.
I'll make a motion for approval, but I have a question.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Councilmember Nelson.
You said from engineering to City Hall? I'm confused with where you're taking the money from and to and why.
That's correct. I did say engineering, and that's where it should come from. There is additional funds in those two line items within the engineering budget because of the unfilled engineer tech position.
Okay, so I got it. You're just reallocating. It's not moving the position from moving. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Additional discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Meski?
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is consideration of an engineer one job description and permission to fill the vacant position. Public Works Director Christensen.
Mayor, members of the council, in front of you, based on a segue that I inadvertently created in the last comment, the engineer tech position that has not been filled since prior to me starting, I would like to rebrand, if you will, retitle to an engineer one and increase some of the requirements for that position and ask to open that up immediately, see if I can get something, see if I can get that filled.
Council, we're being asked to consider the job description, engineering one, and permission to fill the vacant position that has been empty for a number of years.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve Engineering 1 job description and filling of the vacant position. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
I'd like to ask Mr. Christensen to review his organizational chart in his department and how this fits in with the changes that you've made since you've been here.
Public Works Director Christensen.
Sure, in a nutshell, as a Public Works Director, I've got three separate superintendents, one of them being the Assistant City Engineer. And previously, before I was here, there was an Assistant Engineer and 3 engineer technicians. What I have done since that time, since I can't fill one of the final engineer technician, I still have 1 engineer technician, and the other one I created the GIS surveyor that you've recently approved, and we hired him around the first of the year. And then this position would be one of the other engineer technicians that we converted to an engineer with some additional schooling requirements.
Will this bring you to full staff then?
This will.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, Councilmember Meske.
Can you address that? Because I don't know the range. Is it between a 6 and an 8 point, or an 8 to a 9? What is truly going to be the difference in job duties between what you envisioned an engineering technician versus an engineer 1 to justify those differences in salary?
Sure, Mayor, Councilmember Nemeski, the biggest scoring change, if you will, would be the education requirements. The engineering technician previously, or this job description previously, did not require a 4-year degree. What I'm doing with this one, I'm requiring a 4-year engineering degree so that they have the ability to become licensed in the future. Previously, it did not do that, and so requirements, minimum qualifications was one of the biggest reasons for the jump in the salary, or the range rather. The other thing is we'll probably rely on this person a little bit more as far as more in depth in the design, less on the just drafting type things than the original job description stated. And so I think a combination of those, but specifically the education requirements.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who would typically apply for this job? A college grad or less than that?
This particular one, what I would be shooting for would be a college graduate that would be graduated in an engineering field. Obviously, I'm partial to civil since I am, but it doesn't have to be a civil engineer. But an engineering degree is my ultimate requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion to change the job description to Engineering 1, approve it, and fill the vacant position, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is consideration of First Street redevelopment proposal. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, as we discussed at the work session, we've had a proposal submitted to the city of Willmar for the redevelopment of a significant portion of one block on First Street, with the possible second phase for an additional development across the street to the east. The developer has approached the city and requested tax increment financing due to the extreme costs of the demolition and the site restoration that have been built into the land cost. Staff recommends that the council direct staff to proceed with the drafting of a tax increment financing plan and establishment of a tax increment financing district for the proposed redevelopment project for a period of time not to exceed 15 years.
So council, we're being asked to pursue the creation of a redevelopment of tax increment finance district to support a project on the west side of First Street and to lay the groundwork for the redevelopment of the east side as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Abstain.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does pass with one abstention. Next is consideration of items for the airport taxi lane reclamation project. Bruce, or
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, easy for me to say. The city opened bids recently for the East Taxi Lane reconstruction or reclamation project. 3 bids were submitted, and the low bid was submitted by Swenson and Sons Construction in the amount of $297,359.04. At this point in the process, it's necessary to move the project forward by approving and awarding the bid. It's the recommendation of staff that the council adopt a resolution awarding to Swenson and Sons Construction, who is the low bidder, the contract in the amount of $297,359.04, contingent on the availability of federal funds, and also to authorize staff to submit the formal grant application packet for the East Taxi Lane Reclamation Project to the FAA and MnDOT and accept said grant when offered. It's important to note that the city's share of this project is 5% or just under $15,000.
I'll move staff's recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the award with Swenson and Sons Construction and approve a grant submittal and acceptance of the same grant, with the city's portion being $14,867.95. Discussion. Roll call. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With this being done, Bruce, will that take care of all of our issues out there?
Mr. Peterson?
Mayor Kelvin, Councilmember Fagerly, members of the council, that's a pretty broad question, Mr. Fagerly, but looking at the design and the way things are being changed, this will make dramatic improvements to drainage in that East Taxi Lane area. By reconstructing the taxi lanes with the crown as proposed and changing some of the grades, it should have a major positive impact on drainage.
Thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution does pass. Next is a consideration of a work order for construction administrative services for the East Taxi Lane project. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, this is a typical process that the city follows whenever there is an approved airport project and the accompanying need for professional services or consultant work from our airport consultant. We have a general contract with Bolton and Mink to provide basic airport services. When there are specific projects that are approved under the CIP program, the city has traditionally adopted what are called work orders. And in front of us this evening is a work order proposal from Bolton and Mink to manage all the construction for the East Taxi Lane Reclamation Project. The grant is split 90%, 5%, and 5% local. The city's share is to be approximately $4,750, and staff is recommending that the council adopt a resolution approving the work order with Bolton and Mink and authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adopt a resolution approving the work order, authorizing the mayor to sign on the contract with Bolton and Mink. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution does pass. Next is consideration of Rice Park change order for soil corrections and direction on the alternates. Mr. Bresendine.
Mayor Calvin, members of the council, as the Rice Park project has begun, the contractor started to deal with the issue of the shelter, and upon digging below the existing shelter, once it was, it's not existing any longer, as he removed the existing shelter and started getting into the soils, we have found that there needs to be a soil correction made to move forward with the construction of the shelter. John Chester is the contractor for that, and the soil correction change order for this project would be wrote the number down, but I didn't have it handy here. I believe it's $34,344, if I'm not mistaken. The contingency dollars left in the Rice Park project are $31,227, so we do not have enough money left in the contingency fund to deal with that change order. We're seeking direction on the change order. Staff will be able to find the resources for that, and then we'll deal with the alternates to the Rice Park project after the discussion on the change order.
Mayor?
Yeah, I was going to say, the administrator had some comments to make as well.
City Administrator Holland.
I just wanted to make a comment. We need to do the change order, first of all, for the soils, so that we can build the shelter. There was approximately $31,000 in contingency funds. This is looking at $34,000, so we're going to have to come up with $3,000. The alternates, we've talked about it for a couple of months now, and one of the goals at the retreat was that Rice Park be completed and it be the model park for the city. So I'm going to highly recommend that we give approval tonight to the alternates to be purchased and to move forward with that in Rice Park, and also for the recommendation to approve the change order so that we can continue with the shelter. We have a timeline that extends this project into September, but I want to get this project moving now. I don't want to be sitting here in September saying I need something else. So I hope that we've provided you with enough information for you to make a decision tonight. But that's my recommendation for approval of both of these items. Thank you.
Councilmember Meske.
I would move to approve the change order for the soils at Rice Park.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the change orders for the soils at Rice Park in the amount of $34,444. $34,444. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Abstain.
6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstain.
And that resolution passes. Next is consideration of the continued project at Rice Park. Mr. Brizendine, our Community Ed and Rec Director.
Mayor Calvin, members of the council, before you is the list of alternates that were not included in the original motion to move forward with the Rice Park project. At the retreat, it was discussed about completing this project as was in the park plan. So we are bringing forward the other 6 alternates that were not acted upon at the original, when the original motion was made, for the council to consider inclusion of these alternates in the Rice Park project. The timing of this coincides with the work moving forward and will not impact the time schedule in place with the contractors, both the general contractor and the splash pad contractor for this project.
So council, in front of us is a consideration of alternates 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. What are your wishes? Councilmember Schwantes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to start with alternate 8. And for the public that's listening, that's granite countertops for $6,700. I just cannot support that. That seems a bit excessive.
So you'd like number 8 removed?
Yes, please.
Is there someone that would be willing to make a motion for alternates 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6?
I'll make that motion.
The motion dies for lack of a second. Next, we will go to the soil corrections comments for the Willmar Industrial Park. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, as we discussed at the works session, a developer has requested a price concession at the industrial park. This is property that was recently sold to GM Development for the construction of their new trucking facility and warehouse and distribution facility. The property is Lot 1, Block 1, Willmar Industrial Park, 4th Edition. We have closed with the company on the project. They paid a net price of $270,000 for the land to the city at closing last week. The due diligence by the company has uncovered some soil conditions that were unknown to the city. Our very limited soils investigation or borings prior to the sale led us to believe that there were no major soil issues in the park. Having worked for the city for over 30 years and seeing the soil issues that do exist in this community, I should have taken that as a sign. But we went at face value. The soil testing done by the company has uncovered some areas that will need up to 20 feet of correction. They've estimated the cost at $90,000 to $100,000, and the company has requested that the city cover 50% of that cost. It's a recommendation of staff that the city grant a maximum concession of 50% of the additional cost to correct the soil conditions with a not-to-exceed figure of $30,000, and with those funds being paid from the Industrial Development Fund. That would also be contingent upon the developer providing proof to the city of the actual cost of the additional soil corrections.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the city grant a concession, maximum concession of 50% of the demonstrated additional cost to correct soil conditions not to exceed $30,000, funds being paid from the Industrial Development Fund after receiving documentation that the invoice has been paid for the services. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Abstain.
Schwantes.
Aye.
6 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution does pass. Mr. Peterson, I believe we addressed the issue of the TIF earlier. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Next, we have city administrator comments. Mr. Holland.
Did you have a request from a playground?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I should talk about the playground. The executive committee for the playground met last Friday, and they would like to see a plaza constructed outside of the footprint of the current playground. And they're willing to do this, working with Public Works staff to get the work done. But it would be minimal cost to the city, if any, but giving permission for staff to work with the playground committee to bring a proposal on what this would look like, and basically just allowing staff to get the work done for this project. Councilmember Schwantes, I'm not sure if this would be at no cost to the city, or would there potentially be some cost to the city other than the cost of our Public Works staff to work with the people to put this in?
The latter would be my understanding, that the expenses would be paid by the Friends of Robbins Island, we're anticipating selling additional pickets. The last that remain and are available, and there's been an interest in additional benches, and we really believe with the additional fundraising that we would have the ability to acquire that, plus in-kind, so we would be looking for assistance from Public Works to help us install.
And so what basically looking to do is have Public Works work on this, and Public Works staff would then just be able to get it done rather than having to come back to us. The reason this is coming to us is the fact that when the playground originally came, they talked about in the confines of the playground. And the executive committee felt that it was very clear the council wanted us just to work within that parameter and not outside of that parameter. So this is outside of that parameter, even though there's not going to be cost to the city per se. We wanted to come back and make sure that the council was in support of that and allowing Public Works staff to assist with that project. So, Councilmember Nelson, followed by Christensen.
Just an additional, maybe some information on what a plaza is, and then clarification that it'll come back to us for approval, location, whatever, before it's done?
Certainly, if that's what you'd like, we certainly can do that.
Well, I'm just asking.
Well, we were asking, what I was asking for is permission for Public Works staff to work on it. Basically, where it would be is it would be, if you were out there during the build, it would be where the prefab area was, where those two big tents were set up. So it would be where the library is, the little library. It would be to the south and east of that, and then would go kind of over to the corner where the playground comes out. And so we'd be working, they'd be working with two local contractors to work with that. But what we're hoping to do is have the permission for Public Works staff just to get the work done. And it'd be at no cost to the taxpayers. It would be covered by Friends of Robbins Island funding. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just curious again, as Audrey, what's this look like? Is it the concrete or pavers or grass area, or what are we talking, plaza?
Sean, maybe you can shed a little light here. You were in the meeting as well, and you understand that stuff a lot better than I do, so maybe we can just have Sean, or I'm sorry, I apologize, Public Works Director Christensen.
Mayor, members of the council, what's been presented is we've had, I think, the number of 1,000 of those, of an older style paver that you, kind of hexagonal shaped paver that you could put together that was given or donated or dropped off in any form at the Public Works garage. So we would use them for one of the plaza areas, if you will. And so it would be I think they kicked around 20 by 30 or 30 by 40 foot area for these 1,000 pavers that they would be placed. And then that would be, so it'd be a hard surface of this concrete pavers that were made, probably originally made out in Cold Stone or Cold Spring somewhere. The other one, the discussion was probably a poured in place or poured and stamped concrete similar to what the entrance to the park is, so that it would match what's there. But yeah, hard surface, not grass area, with some benches so that they could rent rent out or reserve areas for birthday parties and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
And then those revenues would come back to the cities.
So the location of it would not disturb the road as it is?
Correct. What the conversation was either side of the entrance to the park, or one side of the entrance to the park where the trees are, and then also where the little triangle-shaped area is where the road splits. Put it there and actually eliminate the road that is closest to the entrance to the park, so that there's still a loop road, but the little portion of it that is closest to the park entrance would be eliminated.
Councilmember Verano.
Public Works Director Christensen, are they going to be a canopy or a cover over these, or?
Not at this time. Of course, and one of them, of course, would be the trees that are there, and so I'm not sure a canopy would be necessarily beneficial there. The other one, I think at this time, that was not the idea, but could be discussed at a later date.
Thank you.
So is there a motion for this?
Can I ask one more question? If we ask for it
Councilmember
to
Nelson.
come back before the council, will we be delaying it? Or is there a time frame that would allow it for us to review the locations?
Well, if you make your decision 2 weeks from today, it would be 2 weeks later.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Additional discussion.
What's the motion?
The motion is to approve allowing the plaza to be developed using Public Works staff with any funding coming from the Friends of Robbins Island Fund.
That's what I said.
I think that's what you said, right?
Correct.
And Councilmember Nelson, if you'd like that to come back for approval, you certainly could offer a friendly amendment to that. Seeing and hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. City Administrator comments.
Well, I haven't mentioned this rule, but an old colonel told me one time, the 3 Bs. That's be bold, be brief, and be gone. Okay? So tonight, I will do the 3 Bs. First of all, I want to thank everyone allowing me to go to the conference for the Municipal League in Rochester. Everything's a new adventure for me here in Minnesota, even going through the Twin Cities at 20 miles an hour. That was exciting. But I did get to see a lot of the country, and I took alternate routes both ways, and so I got to see a lot of the communities here in Minnesota. It was very beautiful. And the conference was worthwhile, and I'm starting to learn the uniqueness of the state and some of the uniqueness of the towns and the town people. Also, I would just like to say that over the last couple of weeks, I've met with a lot of the employees in small groups, and I've got a lot of positive feedback from the employees. And also, they seem excited about some of the changes that I'm proposing, such as the employee days and some of the family events over the next 6 months. And so I look forward to participating in that. And last, I would just like to say that, it's Willmar Fest this week, and I know I will be out with the mayor, and I know you all will be doing that as well, but hopefully I'll see you out there. So the last thing, also, I said that was the last thing, but that's not true. The council member comments, I put that on there. That doesn't mean you have to say something every, 2 weeks. You can just say, nothing to report or nothing to say. But generally, I'm hoping for positive comments about the community or about the city or announcements of things that's going on. So with that, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. One of the mayor's comments, I just want to also state and talk about what's going on in the community this week with Willmar Fest. We've got a lot of great activities going on. It starts on Wednesday morning with the flag raising event, followed by coffee with the Queen candidates, and the full agenda is in the West Central Tribune. You can certainly look at that, or certainly look online, and you can find all the activities there as well. So we've got a lot of really exciting things happening in our community. I want to formally invite the council on Friday morning to the Chamber Connection at 7:30 a.m. out at Robbins Island Park, where we will be talking about the Destination Playground and all the work that went in to make that happen. At 9 a.m., there will be a major donor and dignitary event also at Robbins Island Park for the Destination Playground. I invite all the council to be there as well. There'll be an opportunity to interact with our major donors on the project, but also to hear firsthand what happened to make that project happen. At the conclusion of that, we will have a ribbon cutting event, and we'll allow the children to run out onto the playground. And they'll be able to use the playground and have fun that day. The grand opening for the playground is at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and there will be some brief comments prior to that. And when I say brief, be brief, brother, be brief. that will happen. So Dave Baker and I will be making some comments. We've been committed to make that less than 3 minutes. So if you walk in at 5 after 1, you're going to have missed it. So it's going to be a very brief event, and then during the construction, the kids made paper chain. And so the kids will be running through the paper chain to officially mark the grand opening of the playground. So that will be a very good event, and I encourage the council to attend that. Also, you were all invited on Friday evening to the Stingers game, so hopefully we'll see everybody out there. Again, another Willmar Fest event, and then the downtown block party on Thursday as well. Of course, all the events with Willmar Fest, with the parade and the pancake breakfast over at the fire station, along with the fun run. And Mr. Holland advised me this morning that he and his wife will be running in the fun run, so my wife and I will be standing there with resuscitation equipment to make sure they make it through the final line. So, but anyways, with that, are there any comments from the council members? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we, council's not in the parade this year?
Got an email.
I haven't checked my email for a couple of days. Is an email on it?
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
A week ago?
yeah,
I guess I didn't see it then.
asking if you wanted to ride on the
Fire truck.
fire truck again.
I got it.
Okay, I did not see it.
Did I get one too? I don't remember seeing one. Who did it come from?
Kelsey. Came from Kelsey.
I would have seen it, because I go through and delete all the marketing ones, and I stop at the ones that
Came
are
from
from
Kelsey.
City Hall.
Yeah, I think Kelsey sent that out.
Yep.
And I know I saw the mayor listed on there as a separate item, so I'm not sure what you've got in store, but I want to say the council is right after that, but I'd have to look at the parade lineup again.
So the mayor is after the council this year?
No, I think before. I think the council's after you.
Council's after the mayor, okay.
Maybe you could resend that out.
Let me see if I can find that.
I don't think I'm getting run over again this year, so.
And one other comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I wish we had a labor committee. I wish we had a real labor committee that would meet and could sit down, discuss, and understand exactly what's coming through the HR director. Labor committees don't really meet really often, but they're really important. And I think Mr. Meskey would, or Council Member Meskey would agree with that, and it's important to understand what we're doing with the labor, because there's a lot to understand. A lot of it can be above my head. So I think we should think about reinstating the Labor Committee sometime along the way here.
And Councilmember Alvarado, followed by Nelson, followed by, let's just go down the line.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Councilmember Alvarado.
I just want to remind the public that Willmar is an international city, and we are being recognized by great feats because of our internationalness. Senator Franklin has talked about our homecoming queen. We have a refugee movie coming up that's going to highlight the positive aspects of Willmar. We had a young high school student did an interview of our international students and how they got here. I think it's important to realize that Minnesota is going to be in the limelight over the next 5 years, and we have to promote our international flavor. People want to come to new venues, interesting venues, and we have to promote and encourage our international community to, I don't know the word, dazzle it up, get people excited about coming to their businesses, and just be prepared for Super Bowl, a possible World Fair, Final Fours, and who knows what all else. But we are posed to be very popular with our international flavor, and if we miss the boat, that's going to be a sad day. So let's encourage our international flavor. We've got a lot going on for us, so we got to take advantage of that. I honestly believe that people will take a detour if they've got someplace to go, and that place should be Willmar. Thank you.
And I think the movie you were talking about is tomorrow night at WEAC, 7:30, and it's called The Homecoming, and it portrays one of our local high school students. So Councilmember Nelson, followed by Fagley, followed by Meske.
I was going to just comment on that premiere tomorrow night. Mine's called Warehouse, but it's at WEAC at 7:30.
Warehouse?
And encourage people to attend that, but also to get out and enjoy Willmar Fest. Hope to see staff and council members and lots of people out and about for the event. So I'll just say thank you. I did attend the conference that Mr. Holland was at also. It was very good, and hopefully I'll be sharing some materials with you that I received there. And I would just put a plug in for other people to attend those. There are cities, Painesville, for example, their entire city council was there. Spicer, the mayor, and the administrator were there. Granite Falls, Olivia, Alexandria, you can keep going. There's lots of good things to learn and not to have to reinvent the wheel on some things. I think it helps you to think outside of the box and to look at some things. Also encourage you to check out the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Conference is in Fergus Falls, the first week in August. There's an opportunity to do the same thing there with Fergus Falls and to get involved in some of those things that we were complaining about tonight that go on at St. Paul, and to also make sure that Willmar is being heard from as it relates to issues that we face. So I'll quit with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarification on the Sunday liquor. The state says they can be open July 1st, Sunday. We don't meet till Monday the 2nd, so the local stores could be open on Sunday?
That's correct. Obviously, given your time frame for ordinances, there would be a lag. If the council wanted to take a different approach and not allow them, there would be a few Sundays that would pass where, under state law, they could be open.
But they can be open then?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Meske.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since Councilman Christian pointed out I'm a lover of the Labor Committee, I think the 6-month trial period of our work session experiment is at the end of July.
End of July.
So we can revisit that then. And I'd just add, same thing everybody's talking about, Willmar Fest, of course, but then next month, we start our Rock and Robin series, and we'll have 4 concerts. So if you're looking a month ahead, check that out.
Sounds good. Okay, so a lot of good things happening, and I apologize to those that organized the event tomorrow night that I called it the wrong name. You guys have put a lot of hard work into that, and I apologize for my misspeak. Now we'll go into closed session. The closed session is pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D.05 sub 3C to determine the asking price for and/or develop or consider offers or counteroffers for the sales of city-owned real estate property located at parcels 672-1000 and 1010 and 1020. So with that, we'll go into closed session.
Can we just take 5 minutes while
Sure.
people clear the room?
Take as long as we have to.
Can we just do that?
Sure. Okay, we're back in open session. Council,
I'll make a motion to reject the offer.
Second?
motion been made and seconded to reject the offer on the real estate property that was before the council. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Anything else before the council?
To adjourn.
Motion been made and seconded. We are adjourned.